I'm Garrett Reynolds, 30 years old and the founder of SecureLink Technologies. 8 years ago, I was living in my car while coding the software that would become a multi-million-dollar business. Now my mom Diana and her boyfriend Victor are threatening me to give half my company to my half-brother Lucas. The people who should love you the most sometimes hurt you the deepest. I never imagined I'd have to cut off my own family to protect what I built from nothing. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I stood my ground when everyone wanted a piece of my success. Growing up wasn't easy for us. My mom Diana raised me alone in a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. We weren't poor exactly, but money was always tight. I remember watching her count out dollar bills at the grocery store, carefully calculating what we could afford that week. Despite the financial struggles, we were close. She'd read to me every night before bed, even when she was exhausted from her nursing shifts. She called me her little genius, and hung my report cards on the fridge. Computers fascinated me from the first time I touched one at the public library when I was 8. By 14, I was teaching myself coding through borrowed library books and free online tutorials. I'd stay after school to use the computer lab since we couldn't afford a decent machine at home. The librarians knew me by name and would sometimes let me stay past closing time when I was deep into learning a new programming language. Mom didn't really understand my passion, but she supported it in her way. "As long as you keep your grades up," she'd say, ruffling my hair. I think she hoped I'd follow her into healthcare, something stable and practical. But she never discouraged my interests. Everything changed when Victor entered our lives. I was 16 when they started dating. He worked in real estate sales and drove a flashy car he could barely afford. From day one, something felt off about him. He'd talk about his big deals and connections, but nothing substantial ever materialized. Mom was completely charmed. I'd never seen her so giddy, so desperate to please someone. Within months, Victor had moved into our apartment. Suddenly, my coding was wasting time and playing games. Victor convinced my mom I needed to focus on realistic goals. He'd make comments like, "Computer nerds end up working in basements for real businessmen like me," while Mom nodded along. The late nights at the library became a source of tension. "You're being selfish staying out when your mother worries," Victor would say, though Mom had never minded before. I watched our close relationship unravel thread by thread. Victor positioned himself as the authority on everything, including how Mom should parent me. My opinions were dismissed, my passion belittled. I retreated into my studies, determined to escape as soon as I could. When I graduated high school, I worked 2 part-time jobs to afford community college classes. Victor had convinced Mom that paying for my education wasn't a priority. "He needs to learn the value of hard work," he'd say, while spending Mom's nursing salary on weekend trips and new clothes. The summer before I transferred to State University, Mom announced she was pregnant. Lucas was born when I was 18, and overnight, the family dynamic shifted dramatically. Lucas became the center of everything. Victor doted on him as the son who would carry on his legacy. Mom seemed almost desperate to create the perfect family experience for Lucas that she couldn't give me. While I accumulated student loans and worked night shifts at a convenience store, Victor and Mom poured everything into Lucas. They moved to a bigger apartment with a room just for him, filled with toys and a custom crib. When I'd visit, Victor would make pointed comments about my contribution to the household. "Now that you're an adult, you should help your mother more financially," he'd say, while spending hundreds on baby accessories they didn't need. Despite everything, I never blamed Lucas. He was just a kid caught in the middle of a complicated family dynamic. But the contrast was stark. While I had grown up with careful budgeting and second-hand clothes, Lucas had brand-name everything. Victor positioned himself as the perfect father. Something I'd never had, and Mom seemed determined to support this narrative at any cost. I kept my head down and focused on my future. College was my ticket out, and my programming skills were my passport to independence. I told myself that once I was successful, I could rebuild my relationship with Mom without Victor's interference. I had no idea that success would only make things more complicated. My first startup attempt crashed and burned spectacularly. I developed a social media app during my senior year of college, pouring my heart and soul into it for 18 months. 3 investors showed initial interest, but all backed out when a similar app launched with major funding from Silicon Valley. I was devastated. 4 years of education, thousands in student debt, and nothing to show for it. When I couldn't afford both rent and student loan payments, something had to give. For 3 months, my Honda Civic became both my office and bedroom. I showered at the gym, worked at coffee shops until closing, and slept in Walmart parking lots. Those were dark days, but strangely motivating. I'd wake up with my breath fogging the windows and think, "This is temporary. I refuse to fail." During that time, I coded from sunrise to sunset, developing the security software that would eventually become SecureLink. I used the public library's internet and bought the cheapest cloud server space I could find. My diet consisted of ramen noodles and whatever was on sale at the convenience store where I'd worked during college. Mom knew things were rough, but not the full extent. When I called, Victor would often answer and brush me off with, "She's busy with Lucas," or, "This isn't a good time." The few times I managed to talk to her, she'd say, "Maybe it's time to get a real job, honey." Not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. Her words stung, but I understood she was worried. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just chasing a dream anymore. I was fighting for survival. The turning point came when I met Walter Peterson at a tech networking event I'd snuck into by volunteering to help set up. Walter was a retired software engineer who'd worked for Microsoft in the early days. He noticed me refilling coffee urns while simultaneously trying to listen to a panel discussion on cybersecurity. "You're either really interested in coffee or really interested in encryption algorithms," he joked. We ended up talking for hours after the event. I showed him my code on my battered laptop, and he immediately saw the potential in what I was building. "Kid, you've got something here," he told me. "Your approach to network security is unique. But you need a place to work that isn't your car." Walter offered me his garage apartment rent-free for 6 months, with one condition. I had to be ready to pitch to investors by the end of that time. He became the mentor I desperately needed, helping me refine my business model and introducing me to his contacts in the tech world. With a stable place to work and Walter's guidance, I made incredible progress. The software evolved from a basic security application to a comprehensive solution for small businesses. Walter taught me about scalability, user experience, and how to talk about technical features in ways non-technical investors would understand. Even with Walter's connections, securing investment wasn't easy. I pitched to 36 potential investors over 4 months. 35 rejected me. Some said the market was too crowded. Others thought I was too young and inexperienced. The 36th, a woman named Elaine Rodriguez who ran a small angel investment fund, took a chance on me. She invested $150,000 for a 15% stake, enough to rent a tiny office, buy essential equipment, and pay myself a minimal salary to get off Walter's couch. The early days of SecureLink were brutal. I worked 18-hour days, serving as the programmer, customer service representative, sales team, and janitor. For the first year, the business barely stayed afloat. I lived on peanut butter sandwiches and instant coffee, pouring every spare dollar back into the company. During this time, Mom and Victor showed zero interest in my business. On the rare occasions I visited, Victor would ask, "Still playing with your computer games?" And Mom would change the subject to Lucas's latest achievements. Lucas was now 4 and apparently a prodigy at everything from finger painting to t-ball, according to Victor. My best friend Tyler was the only person besides Walter who believed in me. He'd majored in marketing and offered to help with our branding and online presence in exchange for dinner and the promise of a job once the company could afford him. We'd work late into the night, strategizing ways to reach potential clients with our minimal budget. Slowly, painfully slowly, the business gained traction. A local tech blog featured our software. A few small businesses signed up for subscriptions. I reinvested every penny of profit, improving the product and expanding our offerings. By the end of the second year, we had 400 clients and had hired our first 2 employees. Tyler finally came on board officially as our marketing director. The real breakthrough came in our 3rd year when DataCore, a mid-sized tech company, licensed our security protocol for their customer portal. That single contract tripled our revenue overnight and gave us the credibility we desperately needed. Suddenly, clients who had ignored us were returning our calls. Investors who had shown me the door were sending emails asking for meetings. Through it all, my family remained disinterested and dismissive. When I mentioned the DataCore deal to Mom, she seemed confused about what my company actually did. Victor interrupted with, "Speaking of computers, can you fix Lucas's tablet? The kids' games aren't working right." It hurt, but I'd grown accustomed to their indifference. My focus remained on building something lasting. Something that would eventually force them to acknowledge what I'd accomplished despite their lack of support. 5 years after sleeping in my car, SecureLink hit $5 million in annual revenue. We had 28 employees, a modern office in the tech district, and clients in 12 countries. Industry publications were featuring our software, and competitors were trying to poach our talent. The struggling student had become a successful CEO, and I finally allowed myself to feel proud. With the company stable, I bought my first house, nothing flashy, but a comfortable 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood with a dedicated home office. After years of renting the cheapest apartments I could find, having a place that was truly mine felt surreal. I'd walk through the rooms at night sometimes, running my hand along the walls, reminding myself that this was real. The first sign that family dynamics were shifting came when Mom called out of the blue, asking for my new address. "We should visit your new place," she said with an enthusiasm I hadn't heard directed at me in years. A week later, Mom, Victor, and 9-year-old Lucas showed up at my doorstep with a houseplant and curious eyes. Victor whistled as he walked through my home. "Not bad for a computer guy," he said, opening closet doors and checking out my appliances without asking. Mom seemed genuinely happy for me, but also slightly uncomfortable, as if seeing my success firsthand forced her to confront how little she'd been involved in my journey. Lucas was now a lanky kid with Victor's confident swagger and my mom's warm eyes. He immediately asked to see my gaming setup, disappointed when I explained I mainly used my computers for work. "But you're rich now," he said with a child's bluntness. "Don't rich people play all day?" That visit marked a turning point. Suddenly, Mom was calling regularly. She'd send texts asking how the business was going, though she still didn't seem to understand what we actually did. Victor began dropping comments about family businesses and how successful men take care of their families. Their interest felt off somehow. But I was so grateful for Mom's renewed attention that I ignored the warning signs. Around this time, I started dating Brooke Chin, a corporate attorney I'd met at a tech industry dinner. Smart, straightforward, and warmly skeptical, Brooke saw through people's facades with lawyer-like precision. After meeting my family at a dinner I hosted, she voiced concerns I'd been suppressing. "They treat you differently now that you're successful," she observed carefully. "Especially Victor. He looks at you like you're an ATM, not a son." I defended them reflexively, but her words lingered in my mind. The requests started small. Mom called about a temporary financial shortfall. Lucas needed special sports equipment, their car needed unexpected repairs, or bills were higher than anticipated. Each time, I transferred the money without question. These were the normal requests family made of each other, I told myself. I was in a position to help. So why wouldn't I? But the requests grew larger and more frequent. Victor started calling directly, bypassing Mom. "We're thinking of renovating the house," he said casually. "Nothing major. Just 20,000 or so. Family helps family, right?" When I hesitated, he added, "Your mother sacrificed everything for you. Now that you're doing well, it's time to give back." The questions about my business became more specific and probing. Victor wanted to know our revenue figures, our profit margins, our client lists. Just making conversation. He'd claim when I deflected. A father likes to know how his son's business is doing. Though he'd never been anything close to a father figure. I noticed he'd started referring to himself this way more frequently. Then came the day Lucas, now in his first year of community college, showed up unannounced at my office. "Mom and Dad said I should come work for you," he announced to my receptionist loudly enough that several employees turned to look. "They said it's going to be my company someday too. So I should learn the business." I was blindsided. In our family discussions, there had never been any talk of Lucas joining the company, let alone having ownership. Still, I tried to be fair. Lucas was family, and maybe having him learn the business from the ground up would be good for him. I created an entry-level position in our customer service department, making it clear he would receive no special treatment. Lucas lasted 3 weeks. He showed up late, left early, and spent most of his time on his phone. When our customer service manager addressed his performance issues, Lucas stormed into my office. "You can't let them talk to me like that. I'm your brother. We're family. At work, we're colleagues," I explained carefully. "Everyone follows the same rules." "That's not what Mom and Victor said," he shot back. "They said you owe us after everything they did for you." The comment caught me off guard. What exactly did he think they had done for me? Before I could address this concerning statement, Lucas quit. If you can quit a job you barely showed up for. That evening, my phone exploded with angry texts from both Mom and Victor, accusing me of humiliating Lucas and treating him unfairly. Victor's message was particularly telling. "We expected better from you after all we invested in your future." Invested? The word stuck in my mind. Neither of them had contributed a single dollar to my education or business. In fact, they had actively discouraged my path at every turn. Something wasn't adding up, and for the first time, I began to seriously question their sudden interest in my life and business. The situation came to a head at what was supposed to be a celebratory family dinner at my house. SecureLink had just secured our largest contract to date with a Fortune 500 company. And despite my growing concerns, I wanted to share the moment with my family. Brooke had offered to cook, and I'd bought an expensive bottle of champagne for the occasion. Mom, Victor, and Lucas arrived an hour late without apology. Throughout the appetizers, Victor dominated the conversation with stories about his latest real estate deals. Though I knew from industry connections that his career had been stagnant for years. Mom kept steering the conversation to Lucas's community college experience, embellishing his mediocre grades into academic excellence. As Brooke served the main course, Victor cleared his throat and adopted what I'd come to recognize as his business voice, slightly deeper, with affected formality. "Garrett, we've been thinking about the future of your company," he announced, as if discussing a family vacation plan. "It's time to make Lucas an official part of the business. Not just an employee, but a co-owner." I nearly choked on my water. Co-owner? He worked in customer service for 3 weeks and quit. Victor waved this away. He wasn't being utilized properly. Lucas has leadership potential. He should be in management, making decisions. Equal partnership would give him the motivation to really invest himself in the company's future. "Victor, that's not how business works," I said carefully. "SecureLink is the result of years of work, risk, and sacrifice. Partnership is earned, not given. Mom jumped in, her voice taking on the guilt-inducing tone I remembered from childhood. Garrett, I sacrificed everything for you growing up. I worked double shifts so you could have opportunities. Now Lucas deserves the same chances you had. What chances, Mom? You and Victor actively discouraged my interest in technology. I put myself through college. I built my business while living in my car because you two convinced yourselves my dreams weren't worth supporting. That's ancient history. Victor interrupted. We're talking about now. About family taking care of family. Lucas is your brother. Blood. Half-brother. Brooke corrected quietly. And Garrett has already offered him opportunities most people would be grateful for. Victor glared at her. This is family business. Brooke is family to me, I stated firmly. The conversation deteriorated from there. Victor's demands became more insistent. Lucas, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. I deserve this. You got lucky with your company, and now you're being selfish. Lucky. The word hung in the air like poison. The years of 60-hour weeks, the sacrifices, the risks, the countless rejections before success, all reduced to luck by a kid who had never worked hard for anything in his life. The dinner ended abruptly when Victor laid out what amounted to an ultimatum: either make Lucas an equal partner with full decision-making authority, or they would take other measures. The threat was vague but unmistakable. The next morning, I received a disturbing call from our IT director. Someone had accessed confidential company files using my credentials, including client lists, financial projections, and our latest software development plans. The access had come from an IP address traced to a computer at a coffee shop near my family's home. A sick feeling settled in my stomach as I remembered Lucas asking to use my laptop to check email during the dinner, while I was arguing with Victor in the kitchen. Lucas must have downloaded company information. When confronted by phone, Victor didn't even deny it. We're just getting information about our family business, he said casually. Lucas needs to understand what he'll be managing. It's not your business, Victor. It's mine. What you did is corporate espionage. Don't be dramatic. We're family. And speaking of family, I've been talking to some investors about the company. They're very interested in the fact that we helped you start SecureLink. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? You never contributed a dime to my company. That's not how I remember it, Victor said smoothly. I seem to recall providing significant support during your early development years. Your mother and I made many sacrifices to nurture your talent. A judge would find our claim to family investment quite compelling. The threat was now explicit. They were planning to sue me, claiming they had invested in the business and were entitled to ownership. It was completely fabricated, but legal battles could be devastating for the company's reputation and stability, regardless of merit. That evening, Mom called with her own ultimatum. Her voice was tight, rehearsed, as if Victor was standing next to her dictating the words. Garrett, we've supported you your whole life. Now it's time for you to support your brother. Make Lucas a full partner by the end of the month, or consider yourself no longer part of this family. Victor barely glanced at the papers. Water under the bridge. We're here to discuss Lucas's future in the company. There is no future for Lucas in my company, I stated firmly. And I need you to stop telling people you invested in or helped build SecureLink. It's defamatory and damaging to my professional reputation. Mom's face flushed. We gave you life, a home. Everything. That's the ultimate investment. You gave me life and basic necessities, which I'm grateful for. But you didn't support my dreams, my education, or my business. You actively undermined all three. And now that I'm successful, you're trying to rewrite history. Victor's demeanor changed instantly, his false charm evaporating. Listen carefully. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Either Lucas gets his rightful share of the family business, or we'll sue for parental investment rights. We've already spoken to a lawyer. My lawyers are prepared for that, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. They're also prepared to address the corporate espionage from when Lucas stole confidential information, and the defamation from your false claims to my investors and clients. Lucas jumped up. You can't talk to us like this. We're your family. Family doesn't threaten family, I said quietly. Family doesn't try to steal what someone else has built. Family supports each other's dreams instead of trying to exploit them. Mom's expression shifted from anger to manipulation, tears forming in her eyes. After everything I sacrificed for you, raising you alone, working those long nursing shifts, how can you be so cruel? For a moment, the old guilt resurfaced. But then I remembered how she had stood by while Victor belittled my passions, how she had withdrawn her love when I didn't conform to their expectations, how quickly she had prioritized Victor's wishes over my well-being. I'm not being cruel, Mom. I'm protecting what I've built. I would have happily shared my success with you if you had approached me with love instead of entitlement. I would have helped Lucas find his own path if he had shown any genuine interest or work ethic. Victor stood abruptly. You'll regret this. We'll take you to court. We'll tell everyone what an ungrateful son you are. By the time we're done, your precious company's reputation will be in shreds. That would hurt everyone, including yourselves. Whatever fantasy you've created about getting rich from my hard work, it's time to let it go. What followed was an explosion of threats, accusations, and emotional manipulation. Victor paced my living room like a caged animal, alternating between threats of legal action and personal attacks. Mom cycled through tears, guilt trips, and finally cold anger when she realized her emotional leverage wasn't working. Lucas sat sulking, occasionally chiming in with entitled comments about how I owed him a shortcut to success. After nearly 2 hours of this, I stood up. This conversation is over. I want you to leave my home. Moving forward, all communication needs to go through my attorneys. I handed Victor a business card for Brooks Law Firm. You're choosing your company over your family, Mom accused, her voice bitter. No, I'm choosing healthy boundaries over exploitation. There's a difference. After they left, the silence in my house felt both devastating and liberating. I had just cut ties with my only blood relatives. The sense of loss was profound. But alongside it ran a current of relief. For years I had carried the weight of their disapproval, then their sudden interest and escalating demands. Putting down that burden felt like taking a full breath for the first time in decades. The next week was a blur of legal precautions. I had security systems upgraded at both my home and office. Brooke helped me draft cease and desist letters regarding the false claims they had been making. We changed all company passwords and security protocols. I informed key clients and investors about the situation in professional, measured terms to get ahead of any potential rumors. Despite these practical steps, the emotional aftermath was brutal. I cycled through guilt, doubt, and grief. Had I been too harsh? Should I have found some middle ground? Was I wrong to completely cut them off? Brooke and Tyler became my emotional anchors during this period, reminding me of the years of manipulation that had led to this breaking point. You didn't cut them off because they asked for help, Tyler pointed out during a late night at my house. You cut them off because they tried to take what wasn't theirs, then threatened you when you refused. The harassment didn't stop immediately. Lucas would show up at the office, creating scenes in the lobby. Victor called employees, spinning tales about family disputes and trying to gather information. Mom sent long emails oscillating between vicious accusations and tearful pleas. After a particularly disruptive incident where Lucas accosted one of our developers in the company parking lot, I was forced to get a restraining order. The legal documentation detailed the pattern of harassment, threats, attempted corporate espionage, and defamation. When the judge granted the order, I felt no satisfaction, only sadness that it had come to this. The restraining order finally created the space I needed, with legal consequences now attached to their harassment. The direct confrontation stopped. There were still occasional attempts to contact employees or business associates, but these became less frequent as they realized their efforts weren't yielding results. In the silence that followed, I focused on healing. A therapist helped me work through the complex emotions of family estrangement. Slowly, I began to understand that cutting toxic people from your life isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. 6 months passed without direct contact from my family. I threw myself into growing SecureLink, expanding our client base and developing new security protocols. The company flourished, adding 15 new employees and opening a small satellite office on the West Coast. Work became both my distraction and my vindication, proof that I had been right to protect what I'd built. Then came an unexpected call from my Aunt Melissa, my mother's sister. We had never been close. She lived across the country and had always kept her distance from Victor, whom she openly distrusted. Her call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly projections. "Garrett, I'm sorry to call out of the blue like this. I think you should know what's happening with your mom." According to Melissa, Diana and Victor were in serious financial trouble. They had remortgaged her house, the house she had owned outright before meeting Victor, to fund one of his, sure thing, business ventures. That venture, like all of Victor's projects, had collapsed spectacularly, leaving them with massive debt and the bank threatening foreclosure. "I'm not asking you to help them," Melissa clarified. "God knows they burned that bridge. But I thought you should have all the facts." Through Melissa and some discreet inquiries, I pieced together the full picture. Victor had convinced my mother to take out a second mortgage on her house 3 years ago, around the time SecureLink had begun to show serious success. The timing wasn't coincidental. As my star had risen, Victor had grown increasingly desperate to maintain the appearance of matching my success. The business venture had been a real estate flip that went nowhere. Victor had misrepresented his expertise, overpaid for the property, underestimated renovation costs, and ultimately abandoned the half-finished project when money ran out. Now, at 61, my mother faced losing her home and having nothing for retirement. More disturbing revelations followed. A friend in banking revealed that Victor had a history of credit fraud and had been using my mother's good credit to open accounts and take out loans. He had systematically isolated her from friends who questioned his motives, creating a bubble where his version of reality went unchallenged. Lucas, it turned out, had been telling everyone at his community college that he was a founding partner at SecureLink. He had even created business cards with the company logo and the title, Executive Vice President, which he handed out at parties and used to impress girls. Several local businesses had contacted him about security services, believing he represented the company. The most shocking discovery came when a colleague forwarded me a background check they had run on Victor years ago, when he had approached them about investing in one of his schemes. Victor had multiple fraud charges in his past, and had been sued twice by previous girlfriends for financial exploitation. His pattern was consistent: target single mothers with assets, isolate them from support networks, and gradually gain control of their finances. My mother had been his longest and most successful mark. For 14 years, he had been systematically draining her resources while constructing elaborate fantasies about his business acumen. When my success had created a new potential resource, he had immediately set his sights on getting control of SecureLink through manipulation, threats, and lies. As this information came to light, my anger toward my mother softened somewhat. While she had made terrible choices and participated in the attempted exploitation of my business, she had also been Victor's victim in many ways. The strong, capable nurse who had raised me had been systematically broken down and remolded by a master manipulator. About 7 months after our final confrontation, Victor's house of cards collapsed entirely. He was arrested for credit fraud related to accounts he had opened in elderly clients' names through his real estate connections. The local paper ran a small article about the arrest, referring to him as a Local businessman with a history of fraudulent activities. With Victor in legal trouble and his reputation in tatters. The false narrative they had constructed about SecureLink quickly unraveled in their social circle. People who had heard their claims about the family business now saw the truth. Victor was a con man who had tried to latch onto my legitimate success after years of belittling my ambitions. 2 weeks after Victor's arrest, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Not ready to speak directly. Her message was tearful but different from her previous communications. Gone were the entitlement and accusations, replaced by what sounded like genuine remorse. Garrett, I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. I just want you to know I'm sorry. For everything. Victor is, well, you were right about him all along. I should have listened to you years ago. I'm losing the house. Everything. And I deserve it for how I treated you. I just wanted you to know I'm proud of what you've built. Even though I had no part in it. You did it all despite us, not because of us. I listened to the message 5 times, searching for the manipulation angle, the hidden request for money or help. But for the first time in years, my mother's words seemed genuine. Victor's arrest had apparently shattered the alternate reality he had constructed around them, forcing her to confront some uncomfortable truths about her choices. 3 more voicemails followed over the next month. Each expressed similar sentiments, apologies, acknowledgments of wrongdoing. And notably, no requests for money or assistance. Lucas remained silent, apparently having abandoned his claims to my business now that Victor's influence had been removed. I didn't respond immediately. The wounds were still too fresh, the betrayal too profound. But as weeks passed and the pattern of genuine remorse continued, I began to consider whether a very limited, very carefully bounded relationship with my mother might be possible in the future, not for her sake, but for my own healing. After 2 months of consistent, non-demanding messages from my mother, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our homes. I arrived early, securing a corner table and bringing Brooke along for moral support. When my mother walked in, I barely recognized her. The confident, stylish woman who had demanded part of my company was gone, replaced by someone who looked 10 years older, with graying hair and budget clothing. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice small. "I didn't think you would. I almost didn't," I admitted. The conversation that followed was unlike any we'd had before. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, my mother spoke to me with complete honesty. She explained how Victor had gradually isolated her, fed her lies, and eroded her confidence over the years. How he had convinced her that my interest in computers was a waste of time. That Lucas deserved special treatment as his son, and eventually, that they were entitled to the fruits of my success. "None of that excuses what I did," she said firmly. "I was an adult making choices. I chose him over you, over and over. I let him convince me you owed us something. I participated in trying to take what you built. There's no justification for that." Her house was indeed in foreclosure. Victor, released on bail, had disappeared with what little money remained in their joint accounts. Lucas had dropped out of community college entirely and moved in with a friend, blaming both of his parents for the collapse of his expected windfall from my company. I listened without offering solutions. This meeting wasn't about rescuing her from the consequences of her choices. It was about determining whether any kind of relationship was possible moving forward. "What do you want from me now?" I asked directly. "Nothing," she replied. "Just a chance, maybe, someday, to try to be a mother you don't have to be ashamed of. I know I can't undo the past. I know I can't claim any part in your success. But maybe I can learn to be genuinely proud of you without thinking it entitles me to anything." I didn't make any promises that day. Instead, I established clear boundaries. If we were to have any relationship, it would be conditional on complete honesty, professional therapy on her part, and the understanding that my business would never be a topic of discussion. I would not provide financial support beyond helping her find appropriate social services during her transition. "I'm not punishing you," I explained. "I'm protecting myself and the company that depends on me. I can't risk being manipulated again." She accepted these terms without argument, another sign that perhaps real change was possible. Over the following year, SecureLink continued to thrive. We expanded to 50 employees and opened our international office in Toronto. Our security protocols became the industry standard for mid-sized businesses. And we launched a new product line focusing on mobile device protection. Success, on its own terms, was the best vindication. With my professional life flourishing, I turned attention to giving back. I created a scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in cybersecurity, particularly those without family financial support. The Walter Peterson Scholarship, named after my mentor, covered not just tuition but living expenses, ensuring recipients wouldn't have to live in their cars as I had done. Brooke and I got engaged on the 5th anniversary of SecureLink's founding. She had been my rock through the family crisis, providing both legal protection and emotional support when I needed it most. Tyler served as my best man, joking in his speech about the days when I paid him in pizza for marketing advice. My relationship with my mother evolved slowly, cautiously. We met monthly for coffee, gradually rebuilding some semblance of trust. She found a job as a receptionist at a medical office, a step down from nursing, but within her capabilities as she approached retirement age. She rented a small apartment and, with my encouragement, joined a support group for people who had been in manipulative relationships. Through therapy, she began to understand her pattern of prioritizing romantic partners over her children, of seeking validation through relationships rather than through her own accomplishments. She acknowledged how this pattern had damaged both me and Lucas, in different ways. "I spoiled him because Victor wanted me to," she admitted during one of our talks. "But I also did it out of guilt for how different his childhood was from yours. I thought giving him everything would make him happy, successful. Instead, I created an entitled young man with no resilience. I failed both my sons, just in opposite ways. Lucas remained distant from both of us. According to my mother, he blamed her for ruining his chance at getting part of my company. The entitlement Victor had cultivated in him proved difficult to dislodge. Occasionally, I would hear through mutual connections that he was still trading on his connection to me and SecureLink, though to diminishing effect as his claims became increasingly transparent to others. 2 years after the confrontation that ended our family relationship, I invited my mother to the SecureLink office for the first time. I gave her a tour, introduced her to key team members, and showed her what we had built. She asked appropriate questions, expressed genuine interest, and made no claims of connection to the company's development. "I'm so proud of you," she said as we concluded the tour. "Not because any of this reflects on me, it doesn't. I'm proud because you created all this despite the obstacles, including the ones I put in your path." That moment marked a turning point in our healing process. Not forgiveness. Exactly, some actions have consequences that can't be undone, but acceptance of our new reality, and the possibility of building something healthier moving forward. The experience taught me profound lessons about self-worth, boundaries, and the true meaning of family. I learned that sometimes protecting yourself from toxic relationships isn't selfish, it's necessary for survival. I discovered that success is sweetest when shared with those who supported you when you had nothing to offer in return. Most importantly, I realized that the family we choose, the Brooks and Tylers and Walters of the world, can sometimes provide the foundation that biology fails to deliver. These chosen connections, built on mutual respect rather than obligation, often prove more nurturing and sustainable than those we're born into. Today, SecureLink continues to grow and evolve. My relationship with my mother remains carefully bounded but genuine. Victor occasionally surfaces with new schemes, but his power to impact our lives has been permanently broken. Lucas, I hope, will eventually find his own path to maturity and fulfillment, though that journey is his to make. As for me, I've found peace in the knowledge that standing firm against exploitation, even when it comes from those who should love you most, is sometimes the healthiest choice you can make. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who didn't respect what you built? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might help someone else finding the courage to protect themselves. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect what you've worked hard to build. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true family supports your dreams. They don't try to take them from you.